Hello, Scramble-Lock.
What's up, Tash?
All right, so introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Mark Scramble-Lock Sekulowskis. Living here in Montreal. Been dancing since 1998. Started with b-boying, 1998, and then 2000 I started getting into locking, doing both at the same time for most of that stretch. But definitely in the last 2 years, been more focused on locking.
Yeah.
Still b-boying.
We met in 2004, so that's 10 years ago already, so we have a long history. And Scramble is thirsty for knowledge. But it's a good thing, you know. So what was your first experience with locking? The first time you saw it?
So, first time I had seen it, again, it was breaking, so I always liked b-boy videos. So Mr. Wiggles and freestyle session videos. There was a 7 Gems video and a freestyle session video that had a short, small demo of locking in it. And at the time, there was nothing really available on locking. No knowledge, nothing. Unless you knew somebody who did it that could tell you. And I came from Hamilton, Ontario, which is a small city here in Canada. Not a small city, but a city. There weren't many lockers, mostly b-boys. And so I didn't really know too much, and it was the whole mysteriousness to the dance that attracted me. It was the fact that, you know, there were maybe some discussions. There were discussion forums on bboy.com and Mr. Wiggles' website, but it started at bboy.com, and there was Gemini, Richie Rich, Sundance, and a few other people who would make posts on there, and I would read about it, and I just really didn't understand because you didn't have any videos.
Right.
But it was the intrigue and the way that they discussed locking that made it so interesting to want to learn more about it. So that's what got me into it the first. And then after, when I saw the lockers, just seeing the energy and the vibe that they bring, is at that moment I realized, you know, this is something that I can relate with, maybe because of my personality.
Yeah, and so you had to meet somebody in Toronto or Hamilton. So who are these people?
For sure. So in Hamilton, I would go to a lot of b-boy events in Toronto. Like drive on out. And the first guys that I met in person that did locking were the Fantastic Poppers. Licorice Lloyd, Boogaloo Storm from Toronto. They were the first ones to teach me. They showed me the foundations, and they were the first ones to show me video clips of the lockers. So at Lloyd, I always give, he's the first teacher that I had, and they schooled me on a lot of stuff. Those were the ones that I started with. Afterwards, it was like after in 2004, when I started traveling, living in Los Angeles. That's where I met Rich Rich. He was the very first locker I'd ever met from LA. He was the first one that said, don't let anybody tell you you're doing something wrong, but make sure you learn from everybody. So I remembered that and took that for sure to heart. After that, I met you at the B-Boy Summit. I met Gemini, Jeremy, all the lockers from France that were there that year. Don Campbell was there, and Fluky Luke. And I was lucky to take class with Don and Fluky that year. And it was really cool because Don had an approach that was very different from what Fluky taught. But in the end, was able to...
You remember, like, the boombox didn't work, and then they switched this room, and then we started doing soul claps so we could dance. It was fun.
But it was really cool to see that, because that was the first time I had met the lockers. That year, who else was there? Sundance was there, Sugar Pop was there, E.B. Skeet was there, rest in peace. So that was the first time, and I took a lot home that year. The year after that, went back to LA and spent some time with Richie and spent some time with Greg. And both of them, again, showed different things, but the one thing I think that was really good was that Richie was explaining to me about Gemini, because I'd met Gemini. And then it wasn't until that year after that we got to learn a little bit more from him, but Richie was the one that said, you know, Gemini was really important because he went to all the different lockers and learned from everybody. And I'd seen Gemini's movie Obsessive Funk, and that was the thing that was like, oh man, look at, he went to everybody. And so to see that was like, all right, you know what, this is something that I want to do too. I want to meet all these people, because it was just at the time when Rerun passed away. And I think that was something that, like, something inside here, you know, woke up and told me, you know, you need to get out there and learn from the OGs while they're still alive. So I did that, and every year I go back to LA and learn, and I'll just the most the teachers that have had the most impact on me, I'd say, were Richie Rich, Gemini. After that, Loose Caboose, OG Ski, Flowmaster, who came to Toronto and did some classes. Same with Sugar Pop. I took a bunch of classes from him, so for sure, like, part of who I am.
They all part of who we
Disco
are.
Dave, actually. Disco Dave was one of the first guys, because he was at an event in Toronto. Again, one of the first people that I met for locking as well.
For us, it was really easy to go to New York from Montreal, and so Disco Dave was in New York too.
Yeah, he would come up because he was friends with Frank Boogie.
Yeah, his locking was so small in Canada back then. It was hard to have anything locking going, so lockers would just jump in b-boy circles.
There were really only 2 events in
Yeah.
that early time. Funk for Your Feet in Toronto, and then
Yeah.
Bust a Move, which was just starting out
Here.
in Montreal.
Yeah. So, and then, talk about Bust a Move and that first experience.
Yeah, so my first partner in locking was Loose Cannon, who Lloyd linked me up with. His real name is Zach, and he's like, all right, this is Zach, he's going to learn locking, and you guys are going to do a show together. So we worked and we made a street show, and it was the first time I had a partner for locking, so it was cool. A few years after, we decided to go to Bust a Move, because Zach went initially the year before with Miko.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
Funky Miko had moved here, and Zach came to visit, and that's when the first Bust a Move was. But then after he told me about it, and we heard that Don Campbell Lock was going to be the judge.
Yep.
And so after seeing Don in LA the year before, I was like, okay, gotta go, for sure.
I wasn't there for that Bust a Move because I had just left, you know? And I was watching it on DVD after it happened, of course. That's how it was back in those days. And people were asking Don, and I remember saying, like, okay, why did you pick them? And he was like, well, when I saw them, they reminded me of us. Back in the day, the way we danced, the way we dressed, the way everything was, like, you know, very nostalgic for him. That's what he told me. So, and you did, you know, both of you were, I think, you and Zach, and like it's his interview, but I have to say they were complimenting each other very well. You know, Zach had that, like, you know, soulful approach to dance. He's very creative, and like you had the technique down pat with all the knowledge and all what you've taken from all the pioneers you've met, because you've been learning from a lot of people. You know, like you've been doing your research. Not maybe.
I think that's a scientist in me.
It is the scientist in you. So okay. So let's go to like what brought you to Montreal. Yeah.
We were in Toronto, kind of building things at that point. But I know at the time Zach was like, okay, he moved to St. Catharines, which is close to Niagara Falls.
Right.
And I had just finished undergrad at McMaster University, undergrad in chemistry. So at that point, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I decided to do a master's, but not in the same city. My professor had suggested going to another city, and she went to McGill. So she recommended me going to McGill, and that's kind of what brought me here in the first place. Was for school, but at the same time I knew that there was a growing dance scene in Montreal too, so it was like the second attraction to moving here. Early on I would like do a lot of different things. It was this committee, and volunteering here, and working, and dancing, and girlfriend, and all this stuff, right? So after a while, it was actually Licorice Lloyd, the first guy that said, you know, you should focus on a few things. And that kind of put my mind into good direction, I think, to help balance. Because when you start to focus on the things that are important, that's where you'll really make progress, I think.
So your career, you know, like you're a teacher, and you teach chemistry?
Well, when I finished school here, I was looking for some work, and I needed to get some part-time work, and put in an application for teaching, and I got called up actually a few months after. They were like, oh, we're looking for somebody to teach chemistry. I got my degree in chemistry, so the supervisor was like, we got a nurse who wants to teach, and we have you who are into the hip-hop scene. So they felt that I was good to be.
Hi. Oh, we can introduce this little woman here.
This is Smokey Robinson.
So you want to keep locking and going around the world. And
yeah, but I think on top of that, being able to share it with people, even in education purposes too.
Yeah.
Because I do work part-time as a teacher.
Yeah.
And one of the goals that I have in the future is to build, hip-hop education programs in the cities and working with the youth and getting them to know a bit more about the history of street dance and hip-hop culture. And not just the students, but the teachers too. So.
And it's true, because that's one thing that when we were at the conference, we were talking about that, and it's really important for dancers that want to get more into the teaching aspect of dancing or locking or whatever. You need your masters. You need education, you need a diploma. You can't teach in schools or university if you don't have that.
That's one of the issues I find, is that there's a lot of really qualified people to be teaching the history and knowledge, but unfortunately, like, schools don't honor it because there's no piece of paper that said, "Oh, I have a hip hop degree."
Yeah.
But you can't get a hip hop degree like that. It's something that you can't get. But there's ways to work around it, I think.
And I think that
getting a master's in business or getting a master's in education is really important.
Exactly.
Maybe that's something I'm thinking about too, if I want to pursue teaching a bit more in that direction.
For me, we have to change how society view us. And so, but who better than us to make those steps, So what would you see would be healthy for locking in the future?
Yeah, I guess for sure communication needs to happen still.
Yeah.
The older generation, the mid-generation, I guess, from your era, and then the younger generations. We all need to constantly be in communication with each other and just, build in that sense. For it to keep going, I think, the education needs to be there still. Always have that, but also not just educating on the moves, but the code of locking, what it means to be a locker, and the respect for elders, and all that stuff is super important.
I wrote one question about, Gemini. He's your mentor, right? And the importance of having a mentor, for the new generation. I think that we have to talk about that.
For sure. Well, look at Star Wars, right? Luke Skywalker has Yoda.
Yes.
And there was Obi-Wan Kenobi and all that. So it's kind of like the code, I think, of respect within the street dance culture that's really important. If you see that in Kung Fu, you see that in martial arts. And
Greg always, said, they used to go watch, Kung Fu movies and Bruce Lee movies and come out and go, "We're master lockers," and there's the term master lockers. It was from these Bruce Lee movies. Just a little hint.
Yes, Greg also big impact with his camp.
Yeah.
I went to the very first one.
Yeah.
But spending time with Greg also was really influential.
But that's the beauty of the connections that we made back then, is that you had to travel to meet people, and to engage. If we didn't travel, you wouldn't have met Gemini or Richie Rich.
Yep.
And the problem with social media, now is that people don't go and meet people, or they go to the event and they win the battle and they don't connect. Okay, so talk to us about Lock Unity and what you guys represent.
Okay, cool. Lock Unity is actually Boot Camp Pat gave us the name, because we started off 2007. We did some shows here in Montreal. We did a show or two, and she gave the name. Okay, you guys are going to be called Lock Unity. Like, all right, cool. So it was because we did a show, but then after that, as I mentioned before, the scene was going up and down.
Yeah.
And I guess it was at a point where it was kind of quiet. There weren't too many people doing locking. We were all kind of doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Right?
You were all in school too, studying.
School, work, just different directions.
Let's talk about Triforce. Yeah, Triforce. Because you guys did a show, and that song, I heard you picked it.
Yeah.
What was the song again?
Edwyn Collins.
Mm.
Never heard a girl like you before, or never seen
Never.
a girl like you before.
Yeah. It was so surprising because it's such an unconventional song for locking, but it brought me back to how creative you can get with locking. And this year at BEMT, it's the first year you came in as an observer.
Yeah, it was fun.
How was that?
It was great.
It was great.
Think
You know?
this month has been a lot of observation,
Yeah.
seeing how the lock, like just sitting back and watching a lot of things. So and it's good because you do learn a lot
Yeah.
sometimes from sitting back, and it made me proud to see like all the people. Like there were 40 people entering a locking contest, and 40 people in North America is actually
Huge.
pretty good right now.
It's huge.
You go to Asia and it's like 200 in a small event. So
Yeah,
we're not
yeah.
to that point yet, but
Right.
definitely a big step was made with the locking at Bust Move this year to see that many people in that.
So you guys had a good meeting too after the workshop.
Yeah. And talking with other
Yeah.
lockers from Vancouver, Calgary,
Yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people. Again, it's not just us in Montreal, but
Yeah.
there's other groups, Van City Lockers, people in Calgary,
Yeah.
Flow from Toronto,
Yeah.
Funk Lives On.
Oh,
They started
yeah.
a new collective in Toronto, so
That's really
you know
awesome.
it's starting to grow.
You also do your magazine?
In the pocket.
Yes.
Yes.
It's really cool. I can't wait for the next edition, you know?
We've got some projects that we're working
Yeah.
on for this month, but
Yeah.
in the future
Yeah.
will be out soon.
And then I want to show his little session room. And so what's the name of your room? The Hive?
The Hive.
The Hive?
Yeah, that was given to me from a dancer from Toronto. Who was
Yeah.
Tony from Bag of Tricks. So this is it. This is where I practice.
the scripture.
Hive.
What?
Come on in.
Look! This is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh
So this
man.
is the spot. You have like b-boy videos, breaking videos, locking videos, books, everything here. But you know, when you're dancing here, I gotta have Michael.
Of course.
You gotta, well, even before that, you gotta have James Brown. You got James Brown. You got Michael. You got
Yep.
Prince. So those three right there, and then you get like Sly Stone coming in. You got Fred Weston and Bernie Worrell. There's still more. I need a Parliament Funkadelic post. Thanks for coming, guys. Glad you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed it. This is the Hive on Scramble. Be sure to check out scramblelock.com, and also big shout out Watts Soul, Locking for Life, Lock Unity.
Yes.
Peace.
Peace. Thank you. One last thing before, you have any shout outs, people you want to say hello?
Yep, let's go.
Let's go.
Big shout out to everybody Locking for Life family. Shout out to Watts Soul for putting this together, Spicy for organizing Bust a Move and bringing us all here. Shout outs to Lock Unity, fantastic poppers. Shout outs to all the people I've met that made me who I am. So especially Gemini, Richie, Rich, OG Skeet, Loose Caboose, all the original lockers for sure. Right? Don, Greg, Tony Gogo, Fluky Luke, Shabadoo, Tony Basil, everyone. Slim the Robot, even Scooby Doo for sure. Everyone who's made locking big, Flowmaster, Sugar Pop,
Yes.
Sundance.
So
If
many
it wasn't
people.
for these people, Disco Dave, Anthony Thomas,
Yeah.
Jazzy J, thank you for Don, thank you for making this dance, for
Thank you, Don.
allowing us to continue the dance and to keep passing it on. It's the goal, I think, of everybody.
Yeah.
So big shout out to all the original lockers, to all my teachers and mentors, fantastic poppers, my old crew Style Lords, everybody from the Toronto locking scene where I started out, Loose Cannon, Funky Miko, everyone. All around the world, lockers who've been representing Tony Gogo, Japan, Junior in France, all the lockers in France, Locking for Life family in France, the UK, Pat Cesar, Jimmy Williams, much respect to them, to everyone who's been representing here in Montreal and in Canada, Van City Lockers, Sun, people in Calgary, Lady C, people in Toronto, the Funk Lives On movement in Toronto, Flow, big shout outs to them. Big shout outs to Tash, everybody in Montreal came before me here. Flow Rock, Tactical Crew, my B-Boy crew, Illmask.
Oh, and you have a hello from John from Vegas.
Oh yeah?
He says, "What's up?"
Alright. Oh, John Strong.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So yeah, big shout out. He's Style Lords, original B-Boy crew in
I
Hamilton.
know.